Hey y'all, it's Nancy the Handy Scandy. Thank you so much for joining me on the Whimsy Stamps channel today. I have an A2 sized, what I'm calling a critter Christmas card to share with you today. You can see the beautiful dearie on there and the bunny and the penguin, and it's a fun winter scene. And we start out by using our Peekaboo Window 3 die, as well as the Christmas Deer stamp set. And I have the Christmas word die, and this pattern paper pack is called Frozen. It's Slimline, obviously. There are so many beautiful winter scenes, guys. If you've not seen this or any of the other pattern papers like this from Whimsy, I will have everything linked and listed downstairs. I encourage you, hop over there and see what they have. I think you'll be amazed. The artistry on these pattern papers is just stunning to me. So I start out by running my Peekaboo Window 3 die through my die cutting machine with some, I think that's 80-pound cardstock, and I'm just kind of eyeballing it, auditioning it as I say, making sure I line up exactly what I want, because the left side of that pattern paper is, the trees are a little too tall, so they weren't going to show through my windows. So again, just kind of eyeballing it, auditioning it, making sure I have everything cut the way I want it. And so far, so good. So now it's time to stamp out these sweet little critters. And I'm using my VersaFine Clair Nocturne. This is a little bit different ink from what I typically use. I like this one. It gives you really clear, crisp stamped images. So I just wanted to play with something different a little bit today. And this one does stay wet a little bit longer than some of the others. And so I went ahead and I heat embossed it. I'm using just some clear embossing powder from my stash. And I hit it with my heat tool, and it comes out all nice and heat embossed. Now you want to make sure that you get everything all shiny and melty so you don't have any of that dry embossing powder left over on your cardstock. So I decided that I wanted there to be some kind of a pattern, but a tone on tone, like just the texture. So I was looking at what I had. I love that Nordic Slimline rubber cling stamp. It's one of my favorites, but I felt like for this particular project I really wanted the texture that this holly what is it called, embossing folder gives. So because it's a Slimline and my card is an A2, I had to get creative with how I ran it through my die cutting machine, and in the end you can still see like some of the creases, but you can see them, but you don't notice them because you're looking at the overall composition of the card. So they're very slight, but again, if you go looking for them, you're going to find them, but they're not bothersome to me. So I love all of that texture. That holly, oh, it's so pretty. And it just adds just that extra layer of texture. And so now that I have my little critters all stamped out, and I have them heat embossed, and I let it cool so I didn't get anything all smudgy, because if you mess with your embossed images before they're cooled off, you can definitely smear that embossing powder, so I didn't want to do that. Today I'm using my Karin Brush Marker Pros. I've not pulled them out in a little while, so my images are stamped out on some Bristol Smooth because I find that that's how I get my best results with my Karin Brush Marker Pros. I know when they first came out they were all the rage. Excuse me, all the rage, but several people were having trouble, trying to get good results on different paper. And guys, your paper matters, your cardstock matters. Find what works for you with your different mediums and use that. If somebody comes along and says they found something new and you want to give it a try, give it a try. But for the most part, if something's not broke, don't fix it. And so I am loving using the Strathmore Bristol Smooth with these watercolor pens. And so you can see that they don't really absorb quickly into the paper like it would if it were a watercolor card. It kind of sits on top. And something to keep in mind, I laid down just kind of a wash of color in the beginning, and now I'm coming in with some of the darker tones just to add some of those shadows. Now, when you add wet ink to wet paper, it's going to spread, it's going to bloom, it's going to blend. But if your paper is dry, it's pretty much going to stay right where you put it. So those are just some things to think about. And I think that's kind of the same with any liquid medium, to be honest. Watercolor paints are very much the same as the watercolor pens in that way. And yeah, that's just something that that I've learned along the way and wanted to share. And also, when you're doing your shadows, I've said before, a friend of mine used to call them the scary darks. So you want to use a scary dark color because that's what really gives you that depth and that dimension and those shadows that we're looking for that really kind of bring your image to life. And so I always think about that, the scary dark. And when you use your ink pens or your water brush pens direct to paper, you get a very different look than when you use like a palette and pick it up with your paintbrush. So just some things to keep in mind. And you can see the shadows from that scary dark. I think they look great, and they're such sweet, sweet images. Like the artistry on these, just so sweet. Chrissy always does an amazing job. So here is that Christmas word die, and I'm also using the Holiday Snow Globe outline dies because I wanted that tree. That tree, see how it matches the pattern paper so much better than like a deciduous tree. A deciduous is not an evergreen. So for those who don't know, I can't believe I remember that word. But anyway, I just wanted the evergreen, and I love that this particular die just kind of coordinates so much better with that cardstock or that pattern paper. So again, auditioning all my pieces as I do, and as I had them all laid out, I decided that I really wanted a snowy slope. So just cut this out using my stitched border dies, just one little pass through the die cut machine, and it actually gives you two, one with a stitched edge and one that doesn't have a stitched edge. So it's always a twofer when you use something like that. So I just glued it down with some wet glue, and then I used some double-sided foam tape just because I wanted some more dimension, because I'm a more is more girl, and I've talked about this before. So when I do a simple card, I have a hard time. So you guys let me know in the end, is this too simple? Is it still too much? What am I missing? Because I feel like something is missing, but I restrained myself from adding anything more when I got to the end. So I have my little trees cut out in vellum. I feel like they added that perfect little touch of dimension to the back, but still didn't take attention away from that beautiful scene in the background. I have my dearie kind of set behind my snowy slope, and then the bunny and the penguin in front, and that adds some texture and dimension as well because it shows depth in the scene. And I love that the dearie is interrupting the border. I always love to have a scene where something interrupts that border just to show you that it goes beyond. Now you see that I changed out my Christmas because I was going to use silver, but I just thought that the black stood out a little bit more. And also I was going to add another sub-sentiment or some sprinkles or some snowflakes or something. And that's kind of why I justified it over to the left, but I decided against that. It was not quite centered, so I trimmed that excess off on the right-hand side. But you can see I'm not sure. Like I feel like there's something missing. And maybe it's because the Christmas is left justified. Maybe it's because my eye just wants more. You guys tell me what you think, because this is my overall card. Everything that I've used will be linked and listed downstairs. And again, if there are some things that you've seen here that you didn't know Whimsy had or that you'd like more information on, feel free to hop over there and see what we've got for you. We'd also love it if you join us over on our Facebook page, Pinterest, Instagram, all those things. And guys, in the meantime, I'll meet you downstairs in the comments. But until then, mwah, this is Nancy, the Handy Scandy for Whimsy Stamps, and I'm out.